Aho to ye travellers, cometh young, cometh old. 'Tis adventure we seek for the meek and the bold. A knight and a wizard who drink smashes sour have a magic crusade for you this questing hour.
Once upon a time, there was a Questing Hour podcast.
Our podcast?
That's us! And on that podcast, we had a very special guest, Eric. Welcome
in.
Thank y'all.
How's it going? Yeah, of course.
I've been excited for this.
Oh, I know. I can't believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Eric.
glad that we were able to finally all get together.
Yeah, right. Feels good. Eric is a long-term friend of the pod, and by that I mean we've been friends for years and years and years before the podcast even existed.
Before the pod was even
Yeah.
born.
Yeah, most of our crazy college stories, Eric was there for them. So, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too many of them.
Too many
Worth
crazy
it.
stories that we shared together. Oh yeah, so worth it.
So worth it.
So right.
Great experiences for writing. I actually sometimes turn to some of the stories like
Really?
Yeah.
I love that.
I love it. Yeah.
That's kind of how I
kinda-
use like a lot of the experiences. Is I'll take the emotions I was usually feeling in those moments and use them to write other things.
I love that.
Because I'm more of a fiction writer or like even poetry, but even with my poetry, I try to tell a story at the same time. I'm not really a realistic writer, if you will. And so I kind of do similar.
Yeah.
Just tapping into those memories.
And that's kind of how this podcast was conceived as well. Because remember, when
Literally?
we would go on quests in Trey's car. Kind of what brought
That's how
all
the
this
idea was
whole
born.
thing forth. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
didn't it?
provide us a quest.
Yeah, that was how this came to be. And you were there for that. So, if anything,
good
you were
night.
there when
It
this
feels
idea was
almost full
brought forth.
circle having Eric
It
here.
really does. It really does feel full circle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been years since that.
Yeah.
Well, previously on the podcast, y'all, we have had quite a few guests. We have had Ori, who is also a fellow podcaster. We've had Noli, who has transferred her life from one coast to the other coast and just lives her best life. We've had Mad Curious on here, who is a business entrepreneur and streamer. We've had Emma, our apologist and
Mordred
sword
apologist
dealer
and sword
Mordred
expert.
apologist.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we have also had Mars, who is a fellow streamer who recently uprooted her life, making a big decision, and ended up going back on that decision. And now we have Eric, fellow creative and freelancer.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, I honestly, I think freelancer, I tell folks freelance storyteller now. I've
Ooh.
I think I've been freelancing since January of 2022. So it's been 2 years and 8 months
Dang.
that I have been desperately poor and cobbling together rent.
But you're
every-
surviving somehow.
surviving somehow. Oh my god. somehow.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that journey, I started, I think, freelance marketing. I saw someone on YouTube that was like, you can literally like make a living writing and you don't have to be a published author. And it was like through marketing writing, SEO writing. So I still do that. But I realized that it was passionless. I was writing for coding boot camps. So I'd done
So
some like
fun. Yeah, of
a
course.
coding class.
Wow,
in college.
you're not
Yeah.
passionate about that?
That's crazy.
No.
Who isn't?
Come on.
But I think it was a great foray for me working with like editors. Like I had this international client out of Berlin, Germany.
Oh, wow.
I had this paid editor who I would report to and they would give me content briefs. And so it was it was a unique experience. It was a good experience for like really cutting my teeth on just putting words out and editing and self-editing and then like responding to edits. So
It's really cool. And I bet it kind of opened your mind about oh, I know that I like writing, and like these are all the things that I can do with that and make money.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. And
Hmm.
I think around the same time, I was doing it, realized I could make money writing, and then a roommate and I had done a house show, and a fellow poet uh, came to the house show and told me that they started busking their poetry on a vintage typewriter. And then I said, no way. They said, I make $50 an hour doing it. I said, what? So
Nice.
that's where busking came from, and street poetry came from for me, was
But
realizing I could do that. And
Yeah,
this year, it being my full-time job now.
mhm.
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I love that. But like even if you're, poor as you said and struggling a little bit, does it still feel good to like go out there and busk and just like write what you want to write?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was telling my partner, we both came from coffee. I used to work in coffee, and customer service, like
Oh
customers
yeah.
Oh
always
yeah.
right. And
Hmm.
if someone is mean to me while I'm writing poetry, I can say, "Hey, I'm not writing a poem for you."
Get out of my face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like this is my business. I'm not forced to do anything. Like, but I still find myself writing for people I disagree with, and that
Hmm.
being a space where we can like really see each other and hear each other, I think.
Yeah,
I
and
love
kind of
that.
connect on a level that you probably didn't realize you could.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's what all of the poetry I do is. I tell people that the poem is a nice souvenir. I love the poetry. I'm passionate about the poetry, but I've learned that it is about the connection. I tell people to dance almost,
Yeah.
seeing and being seen. And I think that's what we're all looking for in this time of life that we're in, or in this cultural moment, is like we all feel alienated and we're hungry to be heard and to
Hmm.
hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think poetry scratches that. Street poetry.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
I
so
love
cool.
that.
Do you have any like recent stories of people that you've met busking that kind of stick out in your mind?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Yeah.
I write for all flavors of people. Like I think one day someone was on their way to go through trials for diving here in Knoxville,
Ooh.
um, at the university, um, to compete for the Olympics.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, I wrote
That's
for her
awesome.
and her mom, and I think that same day, some award-winning journalist, and I told them I do freelance journalism as well, and uh, she was like published and like published a book, and I think won some awards. I was like, oh my God! And then the next day, I wrote for another man who went through a divorce and was living out of his car, working
Wow.
full time for the government, and it was a tough poem to write. It
Oh
was,
gosh.
Yeah.
yeah. I've cried with people. I think one that really, I think connecting with people. There's one that I tell a lot. There was someone whose grandmother had passed away, and it was at Pride on Maryville College campus, and
Hmm.
I asked her if I could step into that space with her about her mother or her grandmother passing away. And then we both kind of sat on the bench after that, just kind of like, yeah, it was just
Yeah.
a sweet moment to
Oh
like
my
share
gosh.
tears.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Just
I,
like finding a passion and being able to kind of give that to other people and just kind of give
hmm
parts of your heart away and take parts of them as well with it. And
Mm.
also like turning it into like a full-time job is incredible because it
Yeah.
must be
No.
just so fulfilling to be
I
like
was about to say the same
these
thing.
these are the hours I work. I get to do what I love. I get to meet amazing people. They get to meet me. We get to have these connections. And every time that I'm with you, Eric, out in person, somebody's like, "You're the guy with the typewriter."
Wait, that's so funny.
Literally, we were at a coffee shop today, and somebody just goes, "Typewriter," and Eric turns around,
Yeah. Huh? Huh?
and that's me.
You called?
Yeah, just kind of getting to make a name for yourself in the communities just because
That's
you've
incredible.
connected with so many people and reached out in that way is so amazing.
Yeah, I mean, even tourists, like I can guarantee all of the people that you've written for or connected with in those moments will literally remember that forever. Like they will carry that with them for a long time. Like, oh, remember that guy in Knoxville that wrote us a poem? Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And just like that moment of being heard too. I
Mhm.
think like, and I think I feel that as well. I think I carry a lot of them with me. I started, see, I have them, I think here on my desk, right here. So I hold on to kind of their stories and I kind of bind them. So these are my little interview
Oh, that's
books.
awesome.
That is so
This
cool.
one has a
That's like
typo on it, but yeah. So like I have their stories like Guillermo, and then I kind of like conduct the interview and
Mhm.
then write down about Guillermo's life that he just like used to live in New York. And it's like,
So, what's the process like from when someone like walks up to you to giving them the finished piece? Because if you're doing like little like how does that go?
yeah, yeah. A lot of people have that same question as well. I try to be kind of unobtrusive when I'm in public. Like people approach me and they ask of me. It's kind
Mhm.
of my deal. So I have a sign up that says interview style poetry. I'm usually like reading or writing. I write for myself when I'm out there, and someone will say, "What is going on here?" And then I have a whole spiel. I say,
He's ready to go.
I'm ready to go. I'm a journalist and a poet. I combine the two. So I do 15 to 20-minute interview. And honestly, like sometimes we talk for longer. And
Yeah.
then I have actually, where do I have it? Oh, I have it right here. I have my typewriter out. So I have a 1973 Royal Fleetwood typewriter. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but
Beautiful
here's my
instrument.
typewriter.
I love it.
And I
You have to write a
have
poem about us at
homemade.
the end.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
You have to
I
write a
said,
poem.
you have to write a poem about us at the end.
Yeah,
Oh my God, on the spot.
Go on the spot.
On the pod, poem pod.
But continue.
Yeah, I think the heart for the questions that I ask them is to break beneath the surface. Some people it's really easy. Some people are very forthcoming, like this is what's going on in my life. This is how I'm feeling. Sometimes I write for college students, and sometimes people bring their children, and their children are interested. And I find the younger people are, it's a little. I have to do more work of like, tell me about this, tell me about this.
Mhm.
I wrote for some high schoolers that were doing a college tour, and it was very difficult just to be like, okay, like that's probably what you tell your friends, but really it's whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to know that you just like pizza. Like, tell me, what do you like
Yeah.
about the pizza? Is it the
Right.
melty cheese? Is it the crust?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and usually those conversations last. Sometimes I connect with folks and they're not in a hurry. I'm not in a hurry. And we'll chat for like an hour. And I'll be working on the poem every now and then. I'll type a few, just and then we'll chat for a little longer. Then I'll have a line come in my head. I'm like, oh, there we go.
Yeah,
And
that's so cool.
yeah, and then I tell folks at the end, it's pay what you can on a sliding scale. Usually students don't pay anything. And then I've been paid $200 for a poem, but I average about $30 a pop. And sometimes in 3 hours, I usually only write two or three, but usually two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dang. I mean, that's still really cool because, like, even if you're not always getting paid or always, making the most money in the hours or whatever, you're still
Mhm.
getting that recognition. Like, the more people that know about you, the more people will come,
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're like bringing the community together without that being your true purpose. Like,
Right.
you're
Yeah.
there to write, busk, make some money, connect with some people, but like you're in a weird way, you're doing that on like a large scale, just like all these people connecting with other people and telling them about you and seeing you there. That is so cool.
Thank you, friend. Thank you for
Yeah.
affirming that. I tell people it's really spoiled me for other work that this has been
You're like, I will
so
never be able to
fulfilling.
work normal again.
Yeah, right.
Oh my
Imagine clocking
gosh.
into a 9 to 5 after doing that.
Gross.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Inconceivable, truly.
I can't, but I have to. I applied to Trader Joe because it dries up. In Knoxville, it dries up in the winter. So I
Mhm.
have to
Yeah.
kind of figure something out. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we gotta do what we gotta do, but
We do.
For sure.
I still think it's really cool that you've been doing this like for 2 years and you're still like trudging through it, trying to make it work basically. What, because you did have a solid job before,
Mhm.
and what made you decide to be like, I'm leaving my job. I'm doing this full time? Because we've had a couple people on here that kind of had done the same thing, but
Yeah.
like, what was that driving force where you were like, I have to do this. I quit right now.
Yeah. I don't know how comfortable you are with me being like how vulnerable.
However
If you're
vulnerable you
comfortable
want to
being
be.
vulnerable, you are welcome to be as vulnerable as
Yeah.
you want. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I went through a season of life where in work I saw my exploitation. I wasn't able to graduate college, and I did the math with my bills and paying college. I would have to work 80 hours a week for 50 weeks to
Oh,
support myself, pay my bills, and pay for a semester of college. I didn't have any support, and I think politics started coming into it. I started learning more about socialism,
mm-hmm.
recognizing like systems of inequity and like systemic violence. I was homeless for a stint right when I left college, and I saw how violent that machine was and how it's sustained by exploitation in the workplace. So I was working my butt off so hard, and I made it incrementally further as if I had one job. And so I was working coffee shop to coffee shop for a while, went back down to one job. Um, yeah, and I was just so mistreated in that space that when I found out I could um, freelance, and I was seeing people doing freelance writing making 60, 70, 80, $100,000 a year. I was like, I need $160,000 a year and I can finish college, my
Mhm.
education. That'll pay all my bills. That will pay for my education. And I was working at an arts nonprofit, the best job I ever had, the best paying job I ever had. I was making $18 an hour before tax, but I was on like a 1099, so I was taxed higher. But um, so I think I made that leap with the hope that freelance writing would finish my degree for me and pay for
Mm-hmm.
my degree. And I stayed freelance because I saw, even though I was poor and it was a struggle to make ends meet, I was the happiest I'd ever been when I was making more money, but was ruthlessly exploited.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's what's kept me for these couple years. And I'm tired of being poor, and that's what's pushing me back. Is like
Mm-hmm.
uh, I have my final interview at Trader Joe tomorrow, but I also already have the union's website pulled up. So it's like, if you're not going to treat me well, I now know there's systems that
Mhm.
abate that somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Yeah. Did that answer your question? I kind of forgot where I was
Yeah.
going.
No,
Absolutely.
that
Mhm.
was wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it seemed like at the time, like, the motivation, like the driving force was just kind of uh, an a means to an end to finish school, basically.
Mhm,
But you ended
mhm,
up falling in love with it and it carried you the
mhm.
rest of the way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what everyone kind of wants out of like a career or even a
Mhm,
lifestyle. I think what ends up getting exhausting is that because society revolves around money so heavily
mhm,
and
mhm,
at the expenses that everything is at right now, it's
mhm,
impossible for anyone to
mhm.
live comfortably without working all the time. So I
Yeah.
don't think that's on you for,
Yeah.
wanting to be like, you know what, I need a 9 to 5 for a bit so that I
Yeah.
can just not be poor for a second.
Mhm.
Like it's exhausting as exciting and happy as and satisfying as it can be. It's a bit exhausting sometimes to be like,
Mhm,
I gotta pay my bills. I can't hang out with
mhm.
my friends now because I can't
Yeah.
afford to go out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like even
Yep.
Yeah.
the little things like that are so important, like
Mhm.
socializing and connecting with people
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
and sometimes it's harder to do those things when you don't have the time or the money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So you're very valid in wanting to be like, eh.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about that with Emma a little bit, just kind of like, yeah,
Mm.
we all have to make money somehow, but
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
that's our
Yeah.
jobs aren't our life. Like that's not who we are. The 9 to 5 that we
Yeah.
go to is so we can get money to do the things that we love to do. Like
Exactly.
and
Like
have experiences.
compartmentalizing, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can understand it. And it's just like the hard thing is that it does get exhausting being like, okay, you know, we'll get into this a little bit next week too when we talk to Slowpoke. But like some of us are like, okay, we gotta work to make some money so we can go on these trips, so we can hang out with our friends. We're going, we're
Hmm.
networking, we're doing this. Oh, we have an event tomorrow we gotta go to. Oh, then we're going to work again. Oh, but we
Yeah.
gotta fulfill our dreams, so we gotta stream or write on the side or go
Hmm.
busking. And then it's like we gotta go home and sleep and wake up and go to work again. And then our bodies are like, please
Like,
stop
give me
for
a
1 minute.
break.
Give me a break.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's like, do I risk the burnout to feel that satisfaction for a
Mhm.
minute, or do I just be miserable? Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah. It's so tough. And hearing you say that makes me think of, do I have it? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, oh wait. Mm, is it? I can't think of how to say her name. Letitia Vatad.
Mm-hmm.
I think something I've been learning, not learning, or been passionate about rather, is that rest amidst that. And it feels like in our culture, like we have to sacrifice some piece of that. Like I have been secluded, but I have also created and rested, but I have rarely gone out and done stuff with friends. Like
Mhm.
going and grabbing coffee with Maggie earlier today was probably one of the few interactions. And last night going to dinner with my partner's friend, the two interactions I had this week outside of my house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it okay if I read what I think Letitia Fatad says about
Yeah.
rest
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
something I'm trying to
Mhm.
internalize?
Yeah.
She said that rest creates extra space for imagination. Rested people see new alternatives, are more capable of community care and political action. In short, rest is liberating. As such, is potentially disruptive, a challenge to the current world order. Yeah,
I love
yeah,
that.
Mhm.
I
It's
know.
kind of like its own form of strike. Like, oh, you want me to work myself to death? Well, I'm gonna sit here and do
Yeah.
nothing.
Mm,
Like,
Right. I'm gonna take
I'm
this
gonna
time for
rest
myself.
and
Yeah.
be
yeah,
peaceful, and I
Mhm.
hope you hate it.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Mhm.
But like in like even wrestling with that, what you're talking about with that burnout too. It's like if I
mm-hmm.
want to do everything, like if I wanted to see more friends, like if I see another friend or a couple more friends this week, I will risk that burn. Like I will be at risk of that burnout. Like
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
Exactly.
it's definitely about balance, I think. Like,
100%.
which is I kind of go the opposite way. Like, I will make plans every single night if somebody asks me to. I will not
Mhm.
say no. And then by the end
Mhm.
of the week, I'm like, man, why do I feel so terrible? Why am I exhausted? And I have no
Mhm.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then part of me is also like, I feel like I would have regretted it. I would have had FOMO,
Oh, FOMO is
everyone
a
would have made
monster.
these
Yeah.
all of like
Mhm.
anytime our group would get together and you guys went out and I couldn't, I'd be like, they're all having fun without me.
They all
And they're
love each
gonna
other
laugh
more
about
now.
this. They're gonna laugh about this memory forever. And I'm not gonna know what they're talking about.
Oh
All
That's
because I
so
didn't
sad.
feel like going out.
yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I feel like it's important to kind of make those connections with yourself as well. And when you
Mm,
are allow yourself to be isolated for a little bit, give yourself
mm,
some rest. You can do
mm,
things that are fulfilling internally instead of putting all
Mhm.
that fulfillment on an external source.
mm,
True.
mm.
That's a good point. Snaps.
Oh, thank
The
you. Thank you. Yeah,
bars.
we're smart here. We're
Beautiful.
smart here.
We know what we're talking
We're
about.
smart.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
But yeah, I love that. So we know that you are busking and whatnot.
mhm.
What else do you write besides poetry, and how long have you been writing?
Yeah, yeah. What else do I write besides poetry? So I do photo and written journalism. That is where I'm trying to pivot. So my partner and I are moving to Philly in February,
Mhm.
so that I can be close to New York. DC, and then of course in Philly. Trying to still freelance in that. There's just not great freelancing opportunities. I don't have a car. I'm passionate about cycling and kind of anti-car infrastructure, not anti-car. I guess car plus infrastructure is in like
Yeah.
cars can exist, but I also
Yeah.
need sidewalks, bike lanes, rail, and
Yeah.
buses.
Mhm.
I need to be able to move about without having a vehicle.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I say that to say I'm pressing into journalism more. I covered the protests on campus with my camera, and I wrote an article. And then how long I've been writing, I actually wrote a poem about it recently. I think I showed Ari this book. I'm going through finger exercises for poets, and it has some prompts at the end of each section. And yesterday's prompt was about what was your birth as a poet? And so I kind of sat with that. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
So I started writing when I was 13, not poetry, but in verse. I wanted to be a hip hop artist. I wanted to rap.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
How is this the first I'm hearing of this?
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I was in middle school. I was mad. I was angsty.
He's like
I
at
was-
home, like
Oh
practicing
my
his
God.
bars,
Mm.
looking up beats on YouTube,
What could
Yeah.
have been?
Oh my God. What could have
thinking of
been?
the alternate Eric universe.
That is a rapper.
He's a rapper.
Yeah. Oh, it was
Oh my
rough. It was
God.
rough. But
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh.
I
What?
performed for a teacher once, and they're like, "Oh, that's what you sound like," and I was crushed.
Oh
I was crushed. 8th grade, not a great time.
no!
Damn.
Ooh.
I can't believe she
That is
crushed your
crazy.
dreams like
That's
that.
messed up. Mhm.
Messed
Destroyed me.
up.
But yeah, it merged into poetry, and yeah, I think I wrote a lot about the human condition and what I was feeling without realizing it, and didn't really have a whole lot of form. And I think that's something I'm learning now. It's a lot of form, but
Hmm.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, I
cool.
remember when I first heard you read one of your pieces. It was I think I'm pretty sure a long poem about like an ex-girlfriend or something. You were doing it like a poetry reading, and you were like, "Can I read it to you guys first, just so you know any thoughts you have?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely. I'm so down for
Mhm.
this." And the way that you speak your poetry is just so like distinct. It is so emotional and impactful that like you could literally be writing about like the sidewalk concrete, and I think I would fall in love with the concrete. Like, like your writing is so incredible, and I think you have a very distinct way of performing it too, that like you can truly feel the way you live and your passion just flows through your writing at all times.
Oh, that's so sweet. You're making me blush. That's so kind, friend. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I think writing and kind of showing any form of art can be very vulnerable at all times. I think part of the job of being an artist is being vulnerable to some extent, and being able to write that way and also perform it for people. Like it wasn't even like a performance. It was like that was you. That was who you were. And it was just incredible. I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
That was my first interaction with you and your writing, and I have not stopped thinking about it since.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for affirming me. I feel so warm now. Like, that's so
I
kind.
love it.
Yeah, and I think that all of our work has the potential to be impactful that way, and I think that you're already there doing it with busking. And I think that's so cool that you busk. I think like that feels like a dream.
Right.
Like you just get to meet people and talk to them all the time.
Yeah, it really is for me. And and what you were saying, like the vulnerability of it too, like I think most times I go out, I want to quit. The looks people give me, and I think there's two conversations in it. I think people view me as that I'm panhandling, but also I think it's a cultural recognition of how they also treat panhandlers of like,
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
like you look down on people who need money and are
Like,
hungry.
oh, you're
Mhm.
working for the money, but
Yeah.
you're not doing a 9 to 5 like everyone else is.
Yeah, not the
You
way
want to
I
be
think you
different.
should. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
making money like how I think you should be.
Mhm.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I think that says a lot more about society than it says about any of us, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think in just saying that, and I love what you're saying about like the vulnerability of all art. And I've been reading a lot of Mary Oliver too, and I think there's a beauty that I recognize in like and you and both of you of like just how we observe the world too. And I think that's something I've experienced in that creation in poetry and photography is like and in busking too, like I feel like we see things deeper. We see things, we hear things, we experience things. I love what you're saying about like the sidewalk of like earlier, but I think that's
I
so
will
true.
fall in love with the concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like every artist does that of like
Hmm.
in what we create as we take that thing that is ordinary and say there's like I think I even was reading it in this book of like it's common to fall in love with the beautiful, but it's amazing to find beautiful the common.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And I think that's what like all artists do of like all
Hmm.
of us. Really. Yeah.
I
Anyway.
think the example that comes to mind is, did you guys see that video of, I forget what art piece, like I forget the name of the art piece, but it was in a museum and it was a robot that was like cleaning up like
Yeah.
blood, and
Mhm.
because it had been there for so long, all of the blood had dried out the arm and it was slowing down on itself.
Mhm.
And all I could do, like all I could remember is the comments being like, why do I feel sad for a robot right now? Like, why
Yeah.
is this making me
Mhm.
sad? Because over time, the robot just kept getting slower and slower, and it wasn't cleaning anything. And I was like, this is terrifying, and also like, that's
Devastating.
what
Yeah.
art is. They're like, that's what
Mhm.
art does, and that's the
Yeah.
example that comes to mind, where it's
Oh
just
yeah.
like turning this thing that is otherwise ordinary and using our perception to be like, wait a minute, this is crazy. Like this is deep. This
Mhm.
hits me, and now
Yeah.
I'm feeling bad for an inanimate object.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. No, I feel like that
True.
definitely applies to like other forms of modern art as well. Like I always see those TikToks where they're like, I could make this piece of art, like me posing beside a piece of art that I could definitely make. And it's, like an abstract piece of art
Yeah.
or just like like a brick on the ground or something. But
yeah.
what makes it art, what makes it beautiful is that somebody made it. And somebody
Hmm.
Yeah.
like put intention into what they were doing. So even if it looks simple and common and it looks like anyone could do it, not everyone did it. And that's what makes it so important. Is that
Hmm.
somebody was like, I'm gonna put this into the world and here it is. Hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love talking to artists about art. It's so
I
nice.
know. It feels like
So
we're in
good.
our little group right now. We all
Oh
know what
god,
we're
we're
talking
so
about.
cool. Whenever I talk to artists and writers, I always just feel like the friend group in Rent. Like, we're all
No,
struggling so
seriously.
hard, but like at least we have our art.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Feeds our poor souls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sharing that with those
Absolutely.
friends too, who are also artists, of like we're all afraid, we're all
Yeah.
struggling.
La vie
And
boheme.
We're all bohemians trying to get through. Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah.
Hmm.
Mm, mm,
All right.
mm.
Yeah.
So, I know we've talked about a lot about your experience, and I'm sure that for the last 2 years, your life has been one big, terrifying, but also satisfying adventure.
Yeah.
So, how would you define adventure in your own words? Like, what makes something ordinary as opposed to an adventure?
Mm, mm, yeah. That's a good question. What is an adventure? And I think it can look a thousand different ways. Yeah, I don't know. I think about the seasonality. Well, maybe the story of adventure in the way that, like, in a beginning and an end. I feel like I always try to mark my life by seasons, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that's healthy. or not, and maybe
I
that's
mean,
something
we
I need to
all
hold.
we all talk about our life in chapters anyway. You know,
Yeah.
that's no
Yep.
different.
We got chapters, we have eras, we have the hero's journey.
Exactly.
It all, yeah.
It all
Mhm.
connects.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I think an adventure is that openness towards that bravery, that courage, um, in a way that opens us up to the world. I think even opening up our hearts, like we can be hurt on this adventure. We can be maimed and we might not even make it out on the other side. And I think about this grand adventure, this grand story that we're on, this one life that like Ocean Vuong would call this single-use life. We're not going to survive this adventure.
Mhm.
So I think even those smaller adventures being like miniatures or mirrors of the big adventure we're on. Um, yeah, I think it is that vulnerability, that feeling that fear and stepping anyway. And I think there are, and maybe I'm not calling for, I'm not saying like recklessness. I think I'm saying like take precaution, be safe, um, but open yourself to what makes you afraid. I think is what adventure is.
Mhm.
Um, I think of even busking. Like there's so many times
Mhm.
like I feel nauseous going out, but each time I go out feels like an adventure of like, oh, I met and connected with this person who delighted my heart, and I feel so fulfilled at the end of it. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't think every adventure has to end happily. I think an adventure, I think of my college story as an adventure. I went and I tried and I failed. And I fell on my face and I was hurt and I was wounded and I'm still kissing those wounds. Years of therapy.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that was an adventure. I still cry over that adventure. Yeah, I think that's how I would define an adventure. A big conglomerate of words of
Mhm.
feeling that fear and walking anyway, I think is an
Yeah.
adventure.
I love that because
Mhm.
it kind of makes adventure more of a mindset than, you know, an actual thing.
Mhm.
And I like that you kind of equate that to almost feeling that fear because we have so many things. Like, I remember when I was younger, my best friend was like, oh, like if you're scared, have 5 seconds of courage and just do it in those 5 seconds. Like, pretend you're somebody else that's courageous and
Mhm.
5 seconds and just do it.
Yeah.
And I had another friend of mine who says, like, oh, if it makes you nervous, then that means you care about it. Like, that's a good thing. And I like that you're equating adventure to kind of that feeling because that's kind of what it's all about is being it wouldn't be exactly adventurous if it's not outside of your comfort zone. If it's not outside of that fear you have, you know?
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Because then you could just make anything an adventure, really, if you think about it the right
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just being open to whatever
Like,
happens.
I'm
Yeah.
doing laundry, but really it's an adventure.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I started thinking about I love it makes me think about how I started treating like chores and stuff. I started playing Stardew Valley again.
yes, as
And
you should.
As we all are, I think. Yeah.
As we all.
Yeah.
so good.
Mhm.
But I was thinking about my little tasks in the morning of like I'm excited to get up, like I gotta go feed and milk the cows, and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna make some cheese and then I'm gonna sell it.
Yeah.
But I'm it feels like a parallel between that in life too, like because it felt like I was gamifying all of my chores. Like I wake up, I do my little task,
Mhm.
um, turning it into an adventure. Like
Yeah.
these small things. I don't know. I loved what I think you said your cousin was saying of like at times even pretending that you're somebody else.
Yeah, even for 5 seconds, and then just
Yeah.
like do it, and then by the time those 5 seconds are over, you're already in it.
Mhm.
You know? And so, like, for example, I mean, the most obvious examples would be something crazy like, bungee jumping or roller coasters. When
Mhm.
when I went on my first roller coaster, I remember sitting in the ride and I was like, okay, 5 seconds, just 5 seconds is all it takes, just to close my eyes,
Yeah.
pretend I'm somebody else,
Mhm.
and like now I'm addicted. I love roller coasters. Best 5 seconds ever because
Right.
now I ride everything.
Mhm.
And if I
Yeah.
didn't take that 5 seconds to force myself to sit down and put the thing on me, I
Mhm.
would never know what it feels like to have the thrill of a roller coaster.
Yeah, and that 5 seconds that was a catalyst into that one singular adventure led to all of the other adventures
Led
you
to
had in the
everything
future,
else.
all the other amazing experiences just because you took that
Exactly.
first step. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In a way, it makes me think of. It makes me. My partner and I. She got a unicycle, and we've been working on
That's so
unicycling.
I'm
cool.
obsessed with that. Oh
I
my
know, it's so
gosh.
great.
Like, you guys
It's
are
so
just
fun.
so cool.
It's so fun. There's so much falling
I
though,
like,
and there's like
Oh
that
my
like
gosh.
whoa,
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I would be so scared. I
Mhm.
would not touch a unicycle. Like, I'm being so for real.
Right.
Just fall on my face.
Mhm.
oh yeah, yeah. And luckily, I ate it. We brought it. She got it, and I tried getting on in the house, and immediately the pedal hit my shin, and I fell
Oh.
flat on the floor, and it flew against the wall.
Oh
Oh
my
my
gosh.
god.
Oh, oh, I tried that.
Shouldn't get on the unicycle in the house.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But it makes me think, and hearing us talk about that in adventuring too, and your
Mhm.
roller coaster experience, when I feel like I've learned this almost back to my business and freelancing and poetry, like the idea of iterating and that too, and iterating adventures of like
Mhm.
in research we called it in the lab we called it the closed loop process, but it was like trying something, learning as much as you can, trying it, failing, and then taking notes and trying it again and again and again. And I think even that applies towards adventures because I think about all the adventures I've been on where I fell flat on my face, and trying college led to my business
Mhm.
and to freelancing. I failed college horrifically, and then I tried my business and freelance writing, and that failed in a way, but that led to journalism and poetry and writing poetry full time. So I think of that idea of iterating too on adventures of like, hey, that adventure sucked and it hurt and I came out wounded, but that feels that next adventure. So you talking about the roller coaster made me think of that, of like that iterating process of like eventually
Yeah.
you became excited to get on a roller coaster.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mhm.
And it's like, it's just like one thing leads to another. The cycle. I
Mhm.
love that you brought that up, because our next question is, where are you in your hero's journey? Which is the cycle of a hero, of an adventure.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I don't really know, like, are there like hard and fast like cycles that I need to know of?
Yes, there are.
Yes.
Yes, there
Go
are.
ahead, Maggie.
Okay,
Give it
so
to him.
the first step is the hero is in their ordinary world. They have not taken
Mm,
the step over into the adventure yet. They're happy
mm,
where they are. They like being
mm,
there. And then
mm.
they get the call to adventure. Something springs them into action, and they're like, hey, you should go on this adventure. And
Yeah,
at first, the hero refuses. They say, no,
yeah,
thank you. I'm happy where I am. I like my ordinary world. But then
yeah.
a force, a mentor, a decision comes into their life and kind of acts as a catalyst to bring them over the threshold into that new world. So that's like the first half. They
Okay.
are happy where they are. They get the call. They say, no, thank you. And then something happens and they say, okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to go into the new world.
Yeah.
The next part, they are in the new world. They are experiencing all of these new things. They're figuring out what works, what doesn't. They're meeting
Mhm,
their allies. They're meeting their enemies. They're coming up with some conflict. They're
mm,
succeeding. They're failing. They're trying to figure out what works. Through all
mm,
that, they come to what we refer to as rock bottom, or the dark
mm,
night of the soul,
Dark Night of the
where
Soul.
they have failed to a point where they don't think they can get up unless they make a
mm,
serious change and abandon who they were in the old world and
mm,
fully embrace what the new world is trying to get them to embrace.
mm,
And on the outside of there, the dark night
mm,
of the soul, you come into the reward and the reconciliation,
mm,
where they have learned what they needed to learn to escape the dark night of the soul.
mhm,
They are moving out of that. They've succeeded in whatever journey they were trying to make, and
mhm,
they are taking the knowledge they've gained from the new world and returning back to the ordinary world as a
mhm,
changed person. So
mhm.
it goes all the way through, and they're back to where they started as a new person. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So when we first said it, I was like, I don't really, but I haven't used it in writing, but it makes
Mhm.
me think of the hero's journey in
Hmm.
like fiction writing or
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
writing in
Yeah,
Mhm.
general.
like The
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Hobbit is
definitely like
like
a,
the
a
most
literary
used
device.
example.
Yeah.
It's a
Mhm.
literary device.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Okay. Oh, yeah, that makes perfect. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say I'm still deep in the dark night of the soul.
Yes!
It happens.
Brothers in arms, baby.
Yeah. I'm still iterating. I'm still
I've
figuring
been
it
here a
out.
while.
It's
Mhm.
yeah, I would say freelance has been that for me. Like entering
Mhm.
freelance because I had to let my
Yeah.
job know. This was November of 2022. They wanted a couple months in advance, and it was the art gallery. Best job I ever had. I had so much free time and space.
Mhm.
And they're like, we need a couple months. So I had to make a gut decision to say like, or on the spot decision of like doing a gut check of like, how do I feel? Do I think I'll have
Yes or no?
freelance clients?
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Just like, will I have clients? Will I have money? Will I have
Mhm.
income? And then I got to it and I didn't.
Mhm.
And rent checks bounced. I don't know if you can see my hair, but there's some grays in there
Oh
and
gosh.
All the stress.
all the stress. I was worried I was going to get evicted. And
Mhm.
like, I mentioned I was homeless before. Like, there's trauma still in that.
Gosh, yeah.
And so it was like, oh my God, like what am I going to do? And I'm still in that space where
Mhm.
it's like, I'm still iterating. I'm a little bit better than I was. I know poetry. I know how to like use language. Before I would tell people it's pay what you can. I'd spend an hour writing a poem and get $5 for it. Now I tell people a base rate is like pay if you can, but my base rate's $30. And then that gives people a number. And they're like, oh, I want to give you. Before I didn't know what to give and what would be respectable.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
now I know $30 is a
Yeah.
great thing to give you.
Yeah.
And yeah. So yeah, still in the dark night of the soul.
It
It'd be
happens.
like
We've
that.
all been there. We've all been there. Some of us are
Yeah.
still there.
Some of us
Yeah.
never leave here.
Yeah.
It's great.
No. We will. We will.
You will get out. That's the whole point. You
That's
will
the
get
whole
out.
point of the circle.
That's the whole point. Yeah.
The whole point.
Mhm. No, I would definitely
Yeah.
say right now I'm at like the crossing the threshold part, and I'm like, oh, that means the Dark Knight is on its way. But I'm like, what could possibly happen in this?
What could possibly
What could
happen?
happen? How is everything gonna go wrong again?
But
Yeah.
when you enter that, you're still gonna have your adventuring party that
Mhm.
loved you.
Right? And that's
Is
the
gonna
most
care.
important part is that you have your
Yeah.
party beside you to keep you
Exactly.
going, give you the health potions, save you some spell slots.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we're all doing it
Well,
together.
I think the thing that's like keeping me going in the dark night is like, thinking, okay, once I get back to my ordinary world with all of the knowledge I have gained from
Hmm.
this dark night,
Mhm.
other dark nights will not be the same.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
I will have learned and changed because of this,
Hmm.
and I will come out, and the next time I have to face like a rough patch or a bad time, then it won't be as bumpy on the bottom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like I kind of think every time you complete a hero's journey, you like level up in a way.
It's a
So
spiral.
when you have those terrible experiences and like you feel like you're never gonna get better, but then you do get better, you can take all that stuff that you've learned, all the toughness that you've
Mm.
gained, the power that you
Mm.
found in that moment, and the
Mm.
next time you have a bad situation, you're like, oh, I've dealt with worse things, I've dealt with
Yeah.
terrible things before, and I made it out on the other side, and I have all this knowledge from that experience, so I can use it now. And
Yeah.
it's,
Mhm.
it is like you're going up, yeah. An upward
Yep.
spiral.
Yeah.
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 Upward a hero's journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Hmm.
I I love that you were honest about that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you.
Because
Yeah.
it could be a little rough to kind of admit you're in your version of rock bottom right now. you know?
Yeah. Mhm.
But I'm fortunate, and I think Maggie's always been a big champion in this, and I think it took me a lot of years of learning this and hearing Maggie say that. I think our culture is like so big on romantic relationships, and I think of an adventuring
Mhm.
party too, but finding that love in those friends that have like
Yeah.
and our friend group from college was a big piece of that. But I also think of me being chronically online and seeing things on social media of like I am witnessing horrors in
Mhm.
4K. And then I had a friend who was in the artist community, and I feel like in our city we have a good artist community that organizes events, and
Mhm.
I had a friend who was doing like a Trans Day of Awareness, and uh, he is a musician, and he is also part of our writers group, and they were raising money for name changes. And I remember walking down there, and it was something that was just so chill, so calm, and I was like, oh, my heart feels like it's on fire, and this was just like the spring crisp clean water that extinguished it, and I feel like grounded. Like this feels like I'm touching grass. Like I'm okay
Mhm.
here.
Right.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
love
just
here.
just being
Mhm.
able to find that peace in other people, even when you're going through something terrible.
Yeah.
Like that's what really life is all about for me. Like you
Mm.
can go through your own stuff, you can have terrible experiences that only you can really understand, but having people by your side that you can trust and that support you and that you can even just laugh with to distract yourself for a little bit. Like that's what makes it all worth it in the end.
Mm.
Truly.
Mm.
And that's you guys for me.
Oh my gosh, I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
You're so cute.
So maybe it is the adventure and the friends we made along the way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, somebody's got to be the mentor for the next level of
Right,
adventure.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
just level 8 jester trying to teach level 4. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. So, what would you say is this is kind of a double question. So, what would you say is the importance of kind of striving for that satisfaction that you get from your writing and connecting with these people? Like, what is the importance of people living their best lives, even if it goes against the grain?
the importance of people living their best lives that I've seen while interviewing people, or
Just in your opinion, in your
Mm,
experience, whatever you need to pull from.
yeah. I think of authenticity. I think um and and I felt this. We especially this group had our roots came from a place in college where I didn't feel like I was able to live out of authenticity.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think especially as artists, that's something that's so important. I think as a human, that's something that's so important. But we have this culture of repression of like, I need to take what is within me and not let it free, but I have to fit in this box. I think of even like the gender binary too, and that was
Mhm.
a big journey for me, an adventure of exploring gender and sexuality, um, and realizing it didn't fit in that. So I think like living that best life for me, and I think for I don't want to speak for a lot of people, but in my community of like, though there's like cultural oppression that comes out of that, especially living in the South. There is a lot of solidarity, but there is also a lot of anger and hatred and frustration. So I think living the importance of living that best life. Well, I don't know. Living against the grain. I don't know. Did that answer it? Kind of that authenticity piece of like what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Mhm.
I think that is stepping into the joy of that authenticity
Mm-hmm.
of like this is what bubbles from me. I think of like Kurt Vonnegut talking about, I think it's like writers kind of being born to write, and I also think we're born into a lot of other things, and I think
Mm-hmm.
like creating our own path that is so nuanced and doesn't fit into, I don't know, these cultural boxes or cultural repression. So yeah, I think finding that authenticity is what is important in carving your own path. Yeah, that was, I butchered that.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. That was
It
perfect.
perfectly
I
answered it, yeah.
understood. They kind of go hand in hand. Is like, being your authentic self is like kind of a key to living your best life, and
Mm.
and vice versa. Like, how can you live your best life if you're not your authentic self?
Mm.
And I do agree that some of us can be made for a lot of things, but I also think that there are some things that we are just like born for. Like,
Mm.
I can't, even though you said it, I cannot imagine you being a rapper.
You were
I
born to be a
cannot.
poet.
You were born to be a
poet.
poet.
Yeah.
Your soul, your just everything. And that doesn't mean you can't be a rapper, or that
Yeah.
doesn't mean you wouldn't have been a good one. I just think that you are better in this path because you have leaned into being your authentic self. You have done those things where you were searching, through these societal boxes that you thought you had to be in.
Mhm.
And, now it seems like you're your most authentic self. And seeing you change throughout the years, like exploring yourself and trying to figure out, the shit,
Mhm.
like it's incredible. And I think it really is the perfect testimony to
For real.
authenticity and living your best life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
When my little brother was trying to figure out what he was going to do for college, like he was trying to like, ooh, what should I major in? Like, how do I pick a major? I felt very smart when I said this to him, but
Go, give it to us. Lay
I
it on
gave
us.
him this kind of model. I was like, I think everyone in the world has one core thing that they are made to do. And it's not like, oh, I'm made to be an optometrist. I'm made to be a dancer. They're like, I'm made to help people. I'm made to create. I'm made to learn. I'm made to like figure things out. I'm made to solve problems for other people. And that core thing, that everything that you do, all your hobbies, all your passions, the people that you connect with, they can all boil down to that one thing. And I think Eric's is you were born to create and
Yes,
connect.
truly.
And those are the two things that are at your soul and in every single thing that you do. So even if you find other paths to go on to, like you lean into freelance, you lean into journalism, you lean into busking, all of those things connect to that core that is at your soul and who you are.
I mean, you even said it earlier. Like, you were like, I think the thing is being seen or being heard, and vice versa, like between each other in that interaction. You're like, yeah, I'm out here writing poetry for people, but I've seen them, they've seen me. I heard them, they heard me, and for that moment, we were dancing.
Yeah.
And I think that's who you are.
Right. Yeah. So no matter what you do, even when you start at Trader Joe's, you're going to have those connections with people, and that's what's going to make that fulfilling. Because at the end of the day,
I love that.
you're not born to be a Trader Joe's employee. You're born to connect with people and make those connections that you're going to remember forever, and so are they.
Yeah.
I love
I
that
love
about you.
that.
That is
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like, why pick
I
a
totally
career?
will.
Just pick a core task.
Yeah, at the end of the day, your major actually means nothing. It really doesn't mean
You can
anything.
change jobs 100 times.
Hardly anyone uses their major, but you have to find the thing that is who you are, that is going to inspire your passions and your decisions from this point forward.
Yeah.
And it takes forever. Some people are still figuring it out, but like that's what it all is at the end of the day.
That is so
Yeah.
crazy. That's such a good way of thinking about it. Like, I love to help people, but I could never be a doctor, a cop, a psychologist. Like, I cannot see myself in those things, not because I don't want to help people, but because I think that they would be more of a detriment to me than they would be if I were able to help those people. And so, like, at my core is, I feel like my creatives, my stuff that I just like to make and do all the time. And that's how I help people. That's how I connect. It's like a little Venn diagram where like the three circles connect, and like in the middle is your core, and then the stuff around it
Yeah. Exactly like that. Yeah.
are other things that you value.
Yeah.
And then you pick a job based on that.
And then, all of the little springs are all your opportunities, and you can choose whichever one
Exactly.
you want, and you land here one day, land here the next day. Yeah.
There's a job quiz that you can take based on that type of, based on your values. Like, do you like to do these things over these things, or are you more introverted than extroverted? And like, it taps into like kind of your personality and your core values to evaluate like what percentage of jobs you would be better at worse at or more comfortable at based on that. And I'm trying to find it. I think I found it like on LinkedIn somewhere.
Yeah.
But LinkedIn leads me to everything. So like I can't even find it now.
Gosh,
But
yeah.
for listeners out there, in case you're wondering, you could probably look it up.
Find it. We'll tag it. Yeah.
Yeah, if we can find it, we'll tag it below.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever thought of that, of like that core
No.
piece of like how those things intersect. And yeah.
That's why Maggie was like, I think it was pretty smart.
I felt very wise when I told him that. Because I changed my major a couple times, and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. But at the end of the day, I love to make things. And everything that I've done since I figured that out has been, chasing that, like journalism, creative writing, film, directing, TV, all of that has been, I've created a product with the things that I've learned along the way. And that's my thing. And like Emma, she changed her major and changed schools a ton of times. But the thing that she loves to do is she loves to investigate and learn. And all of the things that she's done throughout that, she went into criminology, she went into forensics. She's archaeology now. She's
Maggie,
studying
this is
history.
so profound.
It is so.
First
so
the castle question, and now this.
I'm actually a genius. I am a genius. Yeah.
That is so good.
Yeah, and once you find your core, all of the things that you do is just, a branch of that.
Oh my god.
And that's how I psychoanalyze all my friends.
Literally.
Yep.
All right. One last serious question before we get into the fun stuff. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received?
Yeah. I do think, and I returned to that like season of research, or like that season. I was undergrad research, so I was like doing menial stuff, which we did some cool stuff too. Like this is an aside, but like we had a piece of machinery go down and not do something, so we had to make like a little flamethrower to heat it up. And like
What?
yeah, they're like, Eric, you want to use this? I said no.
Actually,
I said
do.
no.
No, thank you.
I think so. Then I changed my mind. I said, oh yeah.
Yeah, give me that.
But I think back into the lab, because I remember I was so excited about it. They were like chill. But it was like the closed loop process, because like I think our time in academia in school doesn't teach it well, but that like freedom to fail, that freedom to try and fall flat and get up and just iterate, and sometimes quickly. And I remember like I was in my like mid 20s. I think I was like 24, 25. And it was like the first time I felt that, where I was like, oh my God. And that's what ended up like spurring on my business. Is there was that crippling fear of like, what happens if I try something and it doesn't work out? And on that grand adventure, and realizing like, hey, I can do anything. And all it takes is for me trying and failing and learning, and then getting up and taking what I learned and trying it again and again and again and again. And it being okay if I give up after that, because I'm still going to carry that knowledge with me. So I think that was the best piece of advice I had gotten. I remember I was so excited about it. I was like, whoa, there's this freedom to fail. And I remember one of like the PhD candidates was like, hey, but that's not the goal though. Like,
we don't want you to fail, but
it's like fine if you do. Yeah.
It's okay to like drop
Freedom
something,
to
break
fail.
something, for something to catch on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt like research was the first time in academia where I felt like, hey, we're trying to learn something, actually learn something, and figure something out and get to the root of this thing. Yeah, and I felt that with my business and poetry. I would have never started poetry if I hadn't worked that 1 year or 1 semester of undergraduate research, because I would have been so paralyzed by the thought of like, what if I get out there and I write a poem someone doesn't like? And I think that first year, I never liked anything I wrote. And I felt like I went out there and I failed again and again and again and again and again. And it being like, that's okay. That is A-okay. Yeah, and sometimes I still hand out things from like that was hot garbage.
Who wrote that? Because it wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
There's like 2 phases where it's like, who wrote that? Like
Mhm.
congratulatory, and then like, who
Ooh.
wrote that? Derogatory.
Derogatory.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love like freedom to fail is so like of course we have the freedom to succeed and take all these opportunities, but no one ever thinks of failure as a freedom, as like an opportunity in and of itself,
Mhm.
you know, because we can learn something from our failures. And it's because we have those failures that we can have things like success. You know, there has to
Yeah.
be some sort of balance. It can't be 100% success all the time.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, even statistically, there's too many of us for all of us to succeed at the exact same time.
Right.
But
Somebody has to lose.
somebody has to lose.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Okay.
there would be no winners.
Mhm.
And, you know, and we all take our turns and our fair shares of failures and successes. And
Mhm.
I can't. Freedom to fail is so. I was like chronically terrified of failure. Like I got my first C in the 3rd grade. It was 3rd term, and I got it in science. And the fact that I remember it says so
Yeah,
much
that's
about my
rough.
fear of failure. And
Yeah.
I think it's those things that like we carry with us, but like let me tell you, I tried harder in science and I brought it up and I didn't get a C for the rest of the year.
Look at you.
But I know, I'm so cool. Thank you. But it's that, you know, at the time I would not have seen that as like an opportunity to see almost where I was lacking, or maybe I wasn't trying enough, or
Mhm.
you know, where I needed to study more, and because of that it made me stronger.
Mhm.
But at the time all I could think about was this huge fear of failure. You know, and I love that was like a lesson that you had realized in your
Yeah.
time.
Mhm.
But dang, freedom, that is so
Yeah.
cool.
And even
'Cause
thinking about like the hero's journey, like you can't skip over the dark night of the
Yeah.
soul, or you're not going to get
you
to the
have to
reward.
go through it.
You can't just go, okay, crossing the threshold, yay, we're back. Like
Yay, reward.
you miss all the part where you know you learn and change, and that's the
Exactly.
whole journey right there. Like that's the important part.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And
I love
especially as a country that prides itself on freedom. And, you know, I feel like we always look at the bad things as like, oh, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to us?
Mhm.
And, you know, but that is part of our freedom. And that's
Mhm.
kind of the price it comes at,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your advice with us, Eric.
Yeah,
Very
of course.
good.
Thank
Yeah.
you for listening, Fred.
Mhm.
Well, now we have some more serious questions for you.
Yeah.
The most serious
It's
questions.
impossibly important.
More important than everything we've talked about so far.
This is actually true to me.
I'm anxious.
So, as you know, the Questing Hour podcast is very heavy on fantasy, knights, dragons, wizards, medieval history, all of those kind of things. So, put yourself into that medieval fantasy world.
Yeah.
You're there in this world.
Okay.
Things are happening. A dragon's flying overhead.
What's it look like, Maggie?
It's okay, there's a green grass, hills, a dark castle on the horizon with a dark cloud looming over it. But on the other side, a beautiful forest. A deer crawls out of it, looks around, takes a sip of some water. You hear rah, rah, a dragon flies overhead. Whoa, take a look at that. Centaurs are running through the field in front of you. Wow, that's crazy. In this world, you have just found yourself in this world. Are you a knight, a wizard, a king, or a gnome?
Knight, wizard, king, or gnome?
Yeah.
I think I would be a wizard. I'd have to be a wizard.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
but like, I would be like a little fella kind of wizard.
Like a silly little guy.
Just a little guy.
Yeah, I'd be real silly. But if someone was like mean or doing something unjust, I'd turn him into like a frog, and I'd have a jar where I kept all my frogs.
As you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiny wizard just like with a stick, just be like,
Like, hey, leave her alone. I love it. I love it.
I love that. I saw this thing because I feel like when I was a kid, I used to think of like wizards as like the boy versions of witches, basically.
Yep.
And somebody tweeted something the other day that was like, well, witches are usually born into their magic. Wizards learn their magic through like books and stuff. And that's how they
Mhm.
teach their apprentices because they learn the magic. Sorcerers gain their magic through dark means. And then there was another kind that I forget that
Mhm.
was like something else. Basically, they take their magic somehow.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's so cool. Like wizards are the pursuit of knowledge. It makes so much sense. Like I'm the wizard and you're the knight, Maggie.
No, really. Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
It just makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Mhm.
I love that. Wizard Knight.
Night. Mhm.
Wizard
Look.
knight, tiny wizard,
Little wizard guy. Yeah.
little wizard guy
Yeah.
Tiny wizard.
It's
on
so
his
perfect.
unicycle.
Mhm. On his little unicycle hanging around.
I love that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But if there's a
Alrighty.
gnome war, I would be on the side of the gnomes, probably.
Oh yeah. Mhm. I'm
Yeah,
joining
yeah,
the war
I
on
could-
gnomes on the side of the gnomes.
They need something to level the playing field.
Right.
There's
I
gotta
feel
be
like-
some wizards
I
on
feel
their
like they would
side.
need all the help they can get, maybe. Especially if they're going against
Absolutely.
wizards and knights. Yeah.
For listeners and viewers, if you do not know what we're talking about, just look it up on TikTok. Look at the gnome war.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yep.
I love the ones where people like turn their cats into goblins too.
Yes. Oh my god,
Gnomes.
it's amazing.
Yes. All right. I know for sure you've heard this next question before.
It's our favorite question.
It's our favorite question.
Mhm.
Mhm.
If you had a castle, where would it be and what would it look like?
Oh god.
In as much
Oh.
detail as possible.
As humanly possible.
Should I make a new one on the spot or use my old one from college?
Whatever
Whatever
you're feeling
comes to
now.
mind.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
it's the
whatever
same,
you're
if you
feeling
feel
right
like
now.
you've changed. I remember your one from college. It's
I
funny.
have changed in those
I
years.
would-
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
changed a lot.
So what does the castle look like now?
Oh my gosh, that's hard to say. Yeah, my politics have changed, so I think I would have like it'd be like a commune almost, I think. Yeah, I would have like a little like I think it would still be very like academic, like we'd have books, but there'd be like a lot of political philosophy in there. There'd be a lot of
Mhm.
Karl Marx, there'd be a lot of yeah. Yeah. A lot of fiction. We'd have little arts workshops. People would lead them, but in excruciating detail, what the house would look like is it would be a like 3-story chateau in the south of France. There would be lavender fields out back.
Mhm.
There would be a deer drinking from a crystal clear creek.
Yeah.
These things probably wouldn't mix, but it would always be autumn. Nice and cool.
Mhm.
There would be people would bring their kids, or people in the commune would have their kids, and like someone would be teaching the kids, someone would be teaching like horticulture or herbology. We'd have the professor from Harry Potter there teaching herbology.
I love it.
Love it.
Yeah, and we'd have like a little community farm where everyone would grow what they would need or what they can, and Okra
Aw,
would be
sweet
there.
baby.
Okra and Okra's
Oh.
there.
Hi, Okra.
You want to say hi to Papa and talk about
Oh
the
my
castle?
gosh. Hello, Paul.
She calls me Papa.
Papa.
Aw.
Oh,
The
little
baby would be
baby.
there.
Aw.
Yeah, it would have like, no, it wouldn't even be a facade. It would be made out of stone and that thin
Mhm.
glass, but it'd be well insulated.
Ooh, yes.
We would. Where you going? Where you going? Here, let's go on the ground, baby. Go. I love you. Oh God, what else is there? It would be on the water, on a river,
Ooh, yeah.
and we had solar panels. Maybe it would be like a solar punk kind of thing too.
I love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. There'd be so much greenery, and though we would like farm, we would still have people who are like specialists in the area that would kind of teach us like how to not work against our ecosystem, but like help it flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it would just be really community focused. I think is what my castle would look. It would look.
I love that.
It would be a castle, but it would be full of all of the people I love.
I'm just picturing like this grand foyer where you like all meet up at a weekly basis and discuss things or like put on shows for everyone to enjoy or teach things to each other.
Like an open market, like music playing. Oh god.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
We'll be there.
Yep.
Yes. Oh god, yes.
We'll see you at the castle.
We'll see you in your castle. We'll move in for a little bit, of course, before we have to go back to our kingdoms.
Come and go as you
Of
please.
course, of course.
Yep.
We wouldn't have an army, so go.
No army, no guards.
No guards, no army.
Yeah. We don't need it. We don't really
At
need
least
it.
you outnumber most people anyway with all the people in your commune castle.
Right, and your community would protect each other. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, we protect our own.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love it.
I remember your castle when we invented this question in college. You were like, well, first things first, I'm dead and I'm a ghost. I was like, so in your own fantasy castle, you're already dead.
I don't want to be here
You're
anymore.
dead and haunting the walls.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, my body's like under the floor, and I just like haunt the castle's library.
I was teaching pre-recorded lectures still.
Yeah, you were like a professor, but all your lectures were pre-recorded, so nobody knew you were dead. It's so wild.
Oh my
So,
god.
I'm dead. Yeah, I was in the Dark Knight of the Soul.
Yeah, okay,
film.
you're like, first of all, I'm dead.
That was your first Dark Knight of the Soul.
You're like, oh, this is my fantasy world? Yeah, I'm dead.
I'm not there. I've completed the hero's journey.
I am a ghost.
Oh my god. Well, I'm glad your castle's improved.
I know, I'm glad you're alive in this one.
Yeah. Well, now I've learned that it's community care that actually builds me up.
Right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
question is like, hey, what's your castle like? Well, is it my castle? Do I live in it? Because I don't.
Can I die in it?
I die. Can I die in the castle?
Yeah.
It's like,
But,
yes.
Mhm. To get
Belongs to the
psychoanalytical, I think it's very interesting that your castle went from you dead and alone and isolated in a library to you being surrounded by all your closest friends and the people that you love.
Mm-hmm.
It shows a lot of growth.
A
Yeah.
lot of growth for
Yeah.
sure.
A lot of therapy.
Yeah.
Good. That's good.
Thank you, Dr. Terrence Tarver, wherever you are.
Woo, yeah.
Therapy.
Therapy.
I love that.
I think we only have one question left.
We only have one thing left.
And it's only the most important of all.
Absolutely.
So-
I know we've said that before, but this is for real.
This is for real the most important question. So, as you know, the questing hour, the hour is not complete until we give our viewers a side quest for the week.
Oh, yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's just something they can do throughout the week to add a little bit of intentionality, make something a special magical moment for them. So, if you could give our viewers a side quest for the week, what would it be?
Yeah. I feel like I have one that
He's like, I'm ready.
Yay!
I've been reading a lot of Mary Oliver, and I think she is big about observing. And I think we're in a world, and I find myself caught up in it too, where I'm not paying attention to what's happening to me or around me, or like even finding like I think it takes intentional observation to find beauty in the common. So I think like the quest I would give is take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, take 25 minutes, sit outside as autumn is upon us and observe what you see. Have no expectations for yourself. Just drink it in. You're a conduit for the world around you, and just letting it inside you. Hear the birds. Look at the water. Touch the grass. Feel the textures. I don't know, what's that thing of like, what is something you see? What is something you hear? Something that you taste? Something that you
Oh
see?
yeah, like it's like the anxiety cool down type of tactic.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So I would give the quest of sit down for 25 minutes or however long you can. If you don't have 25 minutes, make it 10. And sit somewhere that has meaning to you and is special to you, preferably outside,
Mhm.
and drink in the world, and then turn to a form that you create and create something about that. As a poet, I would say give me an 8-line couplet, doesn't need to rhyme, and then don't show anybody. Make it secret. Keep it to
I
yourself.
love that.
Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or
I-
in any way you create, but keep it secret.
Mhm.
I love it because that quest kind of reflects back to what we were saying earlier about resting.
Yeah, like
Um,
it's just for you.
And
Yeah.
I found a quote from a manifesto called "Rest is Resistance."
Nice.
And the quote is, "You were not just born to center your entire existence on work and labor. You were born to heal, to grow, to be of service to yourself and community, to practice, to experiment, to create, to have space, to dream, and to connect." And that is from Trisha Hershey.
Oh,
And it's a book, it's a manifesto. I'm sure you can read all about it, but resting is a form of resistance, a form
sure.
of protest. It's for yourself and your community and not the society around you.
Mhm.
yeah. So that Letitia Vatad quote
Mhm.
that I was actually, I think, an analysis of.
I love
Hershey.
that.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah,
Full circle, full circle.
Look at that. You're smart.
I wrote an article that's on my website talking about that same thing, and I reference Hershey as well.
Yes,
Nice.
I love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of your website, Eric, where can all of our people find you and connect to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. 2 ways. I'm have my newsletter, I have my blog, I have my website. It's called writing nibs, NIBS, like the nib of a pen.com. There I post my journalism, I post my blog. I don't really post my poetry on there. But I do offer commissions if anyone wants a poem. I'm about to put up postcard poetry, what I'm something new I'm offering on vintage postcards. So something like this.
Oh,
And
awesome.
then
I love that.
I put on write a little poem in the back. So that's something that new that's coming up. That's really the only poetry stuff I have. But you can find my poetry on my Instagram. Eric is Publius, ERICIS PUBLIUS.
Awesome.
That's mostly for you guys on Spotify. For those of you watching on YouTube, we will, of course, link all of Eric's stuff down below so you can find it there. And thank you for being vulnerable and talking with us,
Oh my
Eric.
gosh. Yeah, it was a fantastic chat.
I feel like we could literally keep going for another. I have to cut us
Forever.
off. I have to
I
cut us
know.
off. Somebody has to be responsible here.
It's not us. Yeah.
Because I feel like we really could just keep talking on,
Talk
on and
forever and
on.
ever. Yeah.
That friendship
No, truly.
we have talked most nights away.
Yep. Yeah, forever
Absolutely.
and ever and ever. Yep.
But yeah, I definitely I valued this conversation so much. Any chance I get to connect to another creative, and I mean, obviously we're friends, but you know, it just feels nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. A breath of like, ooh, you see, you understand.
Yeah,
You get it,
exactly.
you get it, yeah.
You get it, exactly. But
Yeah.
Thank you, friends, for having me on.
Of course. Yeah.
of course.
You're always a friend of the Questing Hour podcast.
Oh my
Of
God.
course, anytime.
Yep.
We're in love with Questing Hour.
Love you.
And we love all of you.
All of you guys. Thanks
I'm
for
pointing at
listening
my
along.
camera.
You in the
You
camera.
guys over
you
there and
listeners.
in your ears.
we're in your ears.
We're in your head. And since we're in your head, if we're not in your head, then get us in your head by finding us on all of our socials at Questing Hour Podcast, Questing HR Podcast on everything except Twitter. We are just Questing Hour.
Yeah. And you can listen along here, find this episode and all other previous and future episodes at Questing Hour Podcast on Spotify and YouTube.
And we come out with new episodes every Monday and Thursday.
Yeah. And that's it.
Alrighty.
Farewell.
Farewell, travelers.